Okay, good afternoon. Thank you all for being here. Today, my office obtained first-degree murder indictments for Brandon Walker and Stephanie Jones, the parents of 8-year-old Navin Jones. In those indictments, we alleged brutal and heinous behavior in the death of Navin that make each of them eligible for a life sentence. As you are probably aware, pursuant to earlier court records, police were contacted March 29th regarding an 8-year-old not breathing. When police arrived, they found Navin unresponsive, emaciated, with sunken eyes. He weighed just 30 pounds. At the hospital, doctors later found ligature marks on both wrists. During the investigation, police observed the defendant's house to be well furnished, except for Navin's room. Inside Navin's bedroom, they found one toy, one dresser, and one bed that had no sheets, no mattress, and a pillow that didn't even have a pillowcase on it. There was a padlock on his closet door, and inside that closet was a horrific odor of urine and feces. The door to Navin's bedroom had no knob on it and had been tied shut with a string. There was a sign on the outside of his bedroom door that read, quote, "Do not give Navin any food or drinks. Do not let him out of the room. He has what he needs till I wake up." We assume that note was for his older brother. My office's review of those facts, as well as the discovery of additional shocking conduct by the defendants, led to the addition of the brutal and heinous counts that we added today through the grand jury. As well, we have filed a motion to increase both of their bonds that will be heard on Thursday when they're formally arraigned on the new charges. The shocking conduct that I'm referring to includes text messages between the defendants where they discuss locking Navin in his room, tying Navin up in the basement, beating Navin because he had urinated in his bedroom because he was unable to open the door to go to the bathroom. In the 911 call, the defendant, Jones, first complains about Navin before she even tells dispatcher that he's not breathing. To one of the complaining about Navin, and it's not until the dispatcher asks defendant Jones, "Why are you calling?" she then says that Navin's unresponsive. 53 seconds into that 911 call with that particular dispatcher. During the autopsy, it was discovered there were blunt force injuries on Navin's face, body, arms, and legs of varying ages, showing chronic or ongoing physical abuse. Pursuant to records of the school year when he was in first grade, in the year 2020 and 2021, the staff then reported no problems with Navin eating, using the bathroom, or of his behavior. In fact, he was very social and, quote, thriving. At that time, he was in the care of his grandmother. It was later that year in 2021 when the defendants took Navin. With his parents, for the last 6 months of Navin's life, he was tortured, beaten, starved, and imprisoned, all by the two people there to protect him. The defendants spent the last several weeks of Navin's life doing nothing for him, and I plan on spending the next several of mine bringing him justice. As I stated earlier, Thursday, the defendants will be up in court next for their arraignment on the new counts. There are 6 counts of first-degree murder that were indicted today, as well as our motion to increase bond. Are there any questions?
Yeah, Jody, first, you mentioned that this is a brutal and heinous. You mentioned that this faces up to a life sentence. Does it the age too also make it a virtual life sentence because of the fact that he was under the age of 13? And is this, if that is the case, what do you hope to gain by trying to do the brutal and heinous thing? We have seen many counts like that in the past. Is this more of a statement, or is this more of a way to try to punish them?
Well, the facts call for the brutal and heinous. With regards to the victim's age, it's not a life sentence. It's normal first-degree murder is a 20 to 60-year range. Because of the victim's age, they would be eligible up to 100 years. But the brutal and heinous actually makes it a natural life in prison.
Could anybody else be charged with this? In other words, do the legal indictment stop with these two parents, or are you looking at anybody else to possibly charge?
Our investigation up to this point, criminally, stops with the parents.
Okay, so should I infer from that, ma'am, that as of right now, things could change, but as of right now, nobody else is going to be charged?
Based on the information we have today, that's correct.
What do you think about how the agencies acted? You had a DCFS caseworker say that he looked not well. I think the term was sickly. 6 weeks, 5 weeks prior to his death. You have police officers trying to check in on him, and apparently nothing happened. I mean, there was a lot of people along the way, maybe who could have seen something, maybe who could have stopped it. What do you think about how we got here?
Well, I don't really have any comments on what other agencies did or didn't do before this. My investigation is focused on who was responsible for the murder, and that is the two parents. Yes?
Clarification, it says 6 counts of first-degree murder. Is that 3 per parent or 6 per parent, and why that many?
Good question. 6 per parent. 3 of them, it's varying ways to charge murder. So you can charge it with intent to murder someone, the strong probability based on your actions that that person will die, knowing that they may die. So 3 of them are what we refer to as straight regular murder, and then the other 3 are with the brutal and heinous tack-on sentencing. So 6 counts for each defendant, multiple ways to charge a murder, 3 different ways to charge it, and then 3 different counts, those same ways of charging, but all with a tack-on for the life in prison sentence enhancement.
You were here when, in 2008, when we had a similar case. Mr. Ben Sargent. He was a baby. He was not 8 years old. How difficult are these cases? And I ask that because not only do you have to prove the case, you have to delve into some of this stuff. When you talk about how he was in prison, could you go into that? Could you talk about that he was starved? How do you know? Is there any way that you can share some of the details of the allegations that you are alleging? How do you know that he was in prison? How do you know that he was starved? Yes, he was lightweight. I get that. But what do you know about that? As far as the neglect, how do you know that they did nothing?
You have a lot of questions in there, but I'll try and keep track of all
I
of them.
know.
So I can't go into any more specifics than what I shared here because I'm bound to facts that either are in motions we've filed or have already been presented to a judge or in other court records. But when I say in prison, as I stated through their text messages, they discussed tying Navin in the basement. He had ligature marks on both his wrists, so we believe that did in fact occur. It was clearly apparent that they had left him locked in his room for substantial periods of time. I mean, there was urine and feces in the closet. He had no doorknob. He couldn't get out of the room. The note on his door. So we believe not only was he imprisoned in his room, but he was imprisoned in a basement too, an unfinished basement, by the way. With regards to the first part of your question, these cases are tough. They're hard on law enforcement. They're hard on my prosecutors. They're hard on my support staff. Everybody that sees a case like this, it's a punch to the gut. But this is why we do our job. This is absolutely why we do our job for cases like this and many others, unfortunately.
You mentioned the bed did not have a mattress on it. Did it have a box spring?
I'm sorry,
was he sleeping on a thing of spring?
If I said mattress, I misspoke. I meant it was a bed with no sheets or blanket and a pillow without a pillowcase.
So
I think
it
I
was
did
just
say
a
mattress,
bare
so thank you for
mattress,
clarifying that for me.
right? It was just a bare mattress.
Yes, with a pillow with no pillowcase.
Okay. And you mentioned
And
that
one
there was-
toy.
You mentioned that there was one toy. What toy was that?
I'm not going to go into.
What?
I'm not going to go into the specifics
Why?
on
I
that.
want to know what type of toy it was.
Well, you'll find out at trial.
Was there any type of evidence that his brother was also abused, or was it just solely all of this case towards Navin?
Yeah, we don't believe at this point that he was abused. He seems to be your typical healthy older sibling, which is also a very sad, tragic part of this. It was clear that they favored one child over the other, and unfortunately for Navin, he got the brunt of everything.
Were there any other charges considered, or was it kind of the thing where, once you kind of got the facts, you knew that, this is something that you want to go forward with as first-degree murder? Were any other charges ever kind of considered?
We discussed all possibilities. We discussed, where we could get different sentences and different charges. We felt this was the strongest charge. Obviously, if you can send somebody to prison for the rest of their life, you're not going to get something higher than that. And we felt these facts certainly deserved that. We don't take that lightly. It's not often that we do brutal and heinous. We have in other cases. But brutal and heinous requires a much severe conduct on the part of the defendants to support that case. And we believe we have that in this case overwhelmingly.
You said you were going to ask for a higher bond on each defendant. Can you tell us how much you're seeking and to what purpose? They're both still in custody right now on $1 million, if I understand correctly.
They are. You never know what family members can come up with. You never know what assets an individual has. Do I think they would post $1 million bond? No, but it's possible. So we're going to ask for a much higher bond. We haven't decided yet on a final number. We're waiting to see if there would be any responsive pleading, if his public defender or if they get attorneys, if they would file anything in response.
And did you find any evidence as to why they favored Navin over the brother?
No.
Or favored the brother, excuse me?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you meant. No, we didn't, which also makes this, hard to really understand and comprehend as to why you would do this to another person, let alone your own child.
You mentioned that the house was well furnished. In the DCFS timeline report, it said, and then I did a FOIA for some of the police reports, it said that the house was filthy, full of trash, just ick, yuck. When you say well furnished, do you mean that it was something out of better home than garden in some parts of it, and then you walk into David's room and it was awful? And I'm asking that because when people hear that it was well furnished, what does that mean? Does that mean that it had carpet that wasn't full of poop? Or does it mean that they had a 55-inch TV?
Well, furnished means that they had your typical belongings in your home, your typical furniture and items throughout in various parts of the house, with the exception of Navin's bedroom. I mean, Navin's bedroom was one dresser, one bed, one toy, period.
And that toy was what?
Any clothes in his closet?
I don't remember if there were any in the closet off the top of my head. I can't recall. I'm not sure on that.
There were clothes in the dresser, though?
I don't know about the dresser either, yeah.
When
I think there were, but I'm not certain.
when Dave Kenny did his bonding court thing, he mentioned that the closet was full of poop and pee and all that stuff. Did it look like Navin was using that as a bathroom, or was it spread all over the room?
That would be my assumption. I mean, I don't
Which-
know, we weren't there, that he was using that room as the restroom because he was unable to get out of his bedroom.
Do we have any idea?
We have a number of other text messages that support some of that stuff too, between the defendants where they discuss what had happened and things like that.
When you say there was a padlock on the closet, I think I just need clarification. Do you think that he was locked in there and that's why he was peeing and pooping in the closet?
Don't know.
Okay.
We know he could not get out of his bedroom. There was a string that, the doorknob was off and a string went through it and appeared to have been tied outside. But we don't know if he was locked in the closet. There was a padlock on it for a reason. I don't know what that reason was.
As apparently malnourished as he was, would he not have had difficulty producing a large amount of waste?
That's probably a question for a forensic pathologist. There were some complications with that through the autopsy that we discovered, but I couldn't tell you the medical side of that.
And you mentioned that the brutal and heinous, that's, you know, not, you know, that common, I guess. Can you talk about maybe the last time that you've, you know, filed that kind of charge?
I can't think of the last one, but I do recall, I know in the past we've done some where somebody has repeatedly stabbed one. Like I know we had a domestic violence situation where the victim was stabbed 30-some times. So in that situation, we would do it. But I couldn't give you a case off the top of my head. And I don't know what the last one was.
And as a mother prosecutor, is there anything that stuck out to you from the word text messages, evidence? What hit home the most?
Good question. I have 3 kids, and this is a tough one. I have 3 kids that are under 6 now. I don't know if there's one thing. There's so much in this case that is appalling. Usually when a parent or a parent figure does an abuse case like this, it's by themselves. We rarely see both parents involved to the extent that they were. The communications that went back and forth between them, it's appalling that neither of them at any point thought they should stop abusing Navin or maybe start feeding him. But I don't know. To answer your question, I can't say there's one thing. There are so many factors. You know, this poor child for the last several weeks of his life was just wasting away. And you could see it by the last day. Surely they were observing that for several days and weeks up until the end. And I don't know how somebody just watches that, especially their own child.
And in the DCFS timeline, they were there maybe 2-3 weeks prior to his death.
I believe that's right. Sometime in February, I think.
And he or she, whoever the caseworker was, reported that, you know, he looked sickly, that, why was nothing?
I can't answer that. Yeah, I can't answer that.
We have heard 2 weights. We have had 30 pounds from your office, and from Jamie, we heard 38. I get it, that's not much I mean, the kids shouldn't have weighed that little, but just so that we're not getting it wrong,
Yeah,
what did you weigh?
That's a good question. So the
Right.
autopsy was 30 pounds, and our, you know, one of the doctors that reviewed it thinks that he was pumped with a lot of fluids at the hospital when they were still doing resuscitative measures. And so the 38 is most likely the fluids that were pumped into him, but at autopsy he was 30 pounds.
Okay. And then, one of the things that DCFS timeline is that I just did a story talking to Grandma. The parents fought for this kid, sort of, kind of. They wouldn't let Grandma take him back, according to her and according to the DCFS timeline. there any indication from your text messages, or is there any indication from what you've heard when things started to go south? Was he treated this way from last fall on, or did this appear to be a relatively new thing in the last 3 to 4 months, 2 months, 6 weeks? What?
Well, we believe he only had him from
August?
late summer, late summer,
Right.
early fall, so at most, a several-month window.
Right, but do we know when the abuse and all that
We can't
started?
pinpoint it. According to the autopsy, as I stated, it was chronic and ongoing. The injuries that we observed, it wasn't just something that had occurred the day before or the week before, but we can't put an actual timeline of what date, other than it was ongoing. And it obviously takes a while for somebody to get to the stage that he was to eventually die. That doesn't happen overnight either.
Does it appear that one of the parents took more of an active role in inflicting an abuse and the other parent was allowing it to happen, or were both parents actively abusing the child?
That's not entirely clear. We know that the mother stayed home and the father worked, so certainly she was in the house more than he was, but it's not entirely clear, and we think they're ultimately both responsible. Equally.
Have you been looking at charges against the parents for the other boy? I ask that because the DCFS timeline, as well as others, have inferred that they also abused the other child.
Well, the investigation is certainly not closed by any means. Obviously, with our case pending, we'll continue to look into things, and if we get new information. But right now, we don't see signs of, or at least that we're aware of, that there was abuse to the older brother.
What went wrong? And I say that we are supposed to have people who are mandated reporters. People walk up and down the street. DCFS is supposed to check on this boy. The cops stopped by in 2 different agencies, checked up on him. They went to Florida. People supposedly looked there. What went wrong? And I understand that that's I get it. But there was many parts where the system broke down. And but for one of those working, maybe this boy might still be with us.
Well, I can't
What is the
answer
cause?
that.
Is this a cautionary tale?
I can't answer that. All I know is my office gets involved when, unfortunately, he was deceased, and we're going to do everything we can now at this point to bring justice to him. All right. Thank you all. Have a good afternoon.
Thanks, Joe.